Welcome, everyone. Today we're diving into the rich tapestry of Korean American cultural perspectives, exploring how cultural roots and American experiences intertwine, particularly through personal stories and reflections.
I'm ready to get into this. It's so fascinating how identity evolves when you're straddling two worlds, right?
Absolutely. It's rather like having two homes in one heart. The dialogue we're reflecting on talks about growing up, surrounded by Korean culture at home, while being immersed in American
Yep.
society outside.
Right. And one of the key points is about that delicate balance, isn't it? Being raised in a traditional Korean household and then experiencing American school and neighborhoods must really shape your self-identity in unique ways.
Exactly. There's this line of thought about culture within a culture, where your family instills strong Korean values and traditions, yet you're also expected to navigate the American world. It brings in the concept of reconciling two distinct sets of traditions, which can be both empowering and at times challenging.
And speaking of challenges, what do you think about the experience of being the only Asian or Korean in a classroom, as described here? It really seems like that mix of feeling different, but also learning resilience.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's like you're constantly straddling two identities. One where, on one hand, you feel at home because you speak Korean at home and have those traditions, yet on the other, you're navigating a predominantly American setting.
Yeah,
That dynamic lends itself to both cultural enrichment and occasional isolation.
true. And I noticed that in the dialogue, the speaker mentioned that while it wasn't always painful, there was a sense of being different, even being teased or having people assume things that didn't quite fit. What are your thoughts on that?
It's really insightful. I mean, when kids are young, every little difference feels magnified. For instance, one speaker, Jenny, recalled being teased and having her name compared to a famous tennis player's, like Jenny Craig, which underscores that early exposure to cultural stereotyping. Even if it didn't
Mm-hmm.
break her spirit, it's a small reminder of the cultural gap.
Mm. And it makes me wonder, do you think that early exposure to such cultural teasing has a long-term effect on one's identity? I know some argue it can sometimes lead people to reject one part of their culture.
That's a good point. Personally, it seems like those experiences, while challenging, can eventually foster resilience and a unique blend of identity. However, they might also push individuals to either cling to one identity more than the other or try to subdue the difference in an effort to fit in. But in our dialogue, both speakers seem to embrace being Korean American rather than choosing one over the other.
Yep. Yes. And that expression of identity as both truly Korean and truly American underscores an inclusive view of self, which I think is really powerful. There's a point about having to choose sometimes, but it appears that most eventually see being both as complementary rather than conflicting.
Exactly. It's like a double-edged sword where you gain depth and cultural richness, but must also navigate some friction. And then there's the critical aspect of language, how speaking Korean at home enabled a more authentic connection to family, while also making the outsider status in broader social groups sometimes more apparent.
Yes, language is such a poignant marker of identity here. For many immigrant families, maintaining the native language is a strong cultural anchor, yet it can also unintentionally segregate them in broader society. That dual role is really striking.
Precisely. One speaker recounted how, as a child, they ended up often acting as an interpreter in phone calls, a role that, while practical, also highlighted the gap between what was expected at home versus
Yeah,
outside. And then later, in adulthood, there's that desire to refine one's language skills further, whether it's to chat more deeply with Korean friends or just to feel more integrated.
I also found it intriguing how the conversation touched on the concept of belonging, not just culturally, but spiritually. The idea that one's sense of belonging comes from a deeper connection, even with God, seems to suggest that there's a higher identity that can transcend cultural divides.
Right. The notion of belonging here is layered. It's not just about fitting in with cultural or ethnic groups. It's also about that inherent connection and acceptance that comes from faith or spirituality. Like one of the speakers mentioned, feeling that ownership of their identity came from belonging first to God, and then everything else fell into place.
And that framing really challenges the common idea that you can fully belong only if every external marker aligns. Instead, true belonging seems to come from within. It's self-determined and reinforced by relationships, be they familial, cultural, or spiritual.
Absolutely. Which brings us to another critical point, the role of community. Whether it's a Korean neighborhood in Atlanta or, as mentioned, having gatherings with Korean church groups, these spaces provide a safe haven where cultural identity is celebrated and continuously reinforced.
Yeah, I think it's important to add, though, that while these community enclaves can be affirming, they might also create a sort of bubble that limits exposure to broader American society. I mean, how do you strike the right balance?
That's a really interesting critique. While these enclaves offer comfort, there can be a risk, a sort of echo chamber where you don't practice the broader societal skills, especially language skills. But then again, as Jenny noted, maintaining some distance can actually force you to engage more broadly.
Right.
It's a fine line between comfort and isolation.
Exactly, and it's clear that many first or second generation immigrants are actively navigating this balance, choosing to immerse in wider society while still honoring their heritage. It doesn't have to be either/or.
Yeah, it's sort of like a dynamic dance, right? One moment you're indulging in familiar cultural practices at home, and then you're stepping out into the diverse American landscape. And through that dance, you build resilience.
Speaking of resilience, what struck me was the story about feeling pressured as a kid to grow up quickly, witnessing parents struggle with language barriers and constant moves, which in turn instilled a drive to adapt and succeed. That dual pressure is intense.
Definitely. It's like those early challenges, the frequent moves, having to be the bridge between your parents and the new world. They forge a unique inner strength. Yet, I wonder if that pressure ever leads to a kind of internal conflict later, where one might question, am I defined by these struggles?
Yeah. And that's where the notion of forgiveness and acceptance of one's origins comes in, I think. Instead of seeing those struggles as solely negative, they can be integrated into a proud, multifaceted identity.
Exactly. It's like reinterpreting your narrative. You know, what might have felt like a chain becomes the very thing that sets you free. And in our conversation here, it's evident that while there are moments of alienation, there's also a deep-seated gratitude for the experiences that shape you.
Right. And it's intriguing how these personal stories also hint at broader societal changes. For example, the wider awareness of Korean culture today, thanks to K-pop and K-dramas, indicates that what was once niche is now mainstream. It's brought new awareness and appreciation for Korean traditions.
Absolutely, it's transforming how cultural identity is perceived not only by those within the community, but by the larger American public too. This transformation fosters a more inclusive view where being Korean American is celebrated.
Sure. And yet, it's also a call to ensure that immigrant families balance community support with opportunities to integrate into broader society, especially for economic and professional growth.
Exactly. One of the speakers brought up how language barriers can limit job opportunities, meaning that while comfort is important, stepping outside that bubble can open new doors. It's really a matter of long-term empowerment.
Definitely. And it raises the point that cultural preservation shouldn't come at the expense of broader social integration. Our identities are as much about where we've been as they are about where we're going.
That's a perfect way to put it. And as the dialogue shows, even when people are faced with the challenge of learning a new language midlife or adapting to a radically different culture, there's hope and encouragement to keep pushing forward, to be open-minded and take risks.
Right. I must add, though, that such transitions can be bittersweet. There's a tug of war between nostalgia for the homeland and the excitement of a new era. And it's something not every immigrant or descendant experiences in the same way.
Totally. And while some might argue the pull to stick with the familiar is stronger, others find that embracing change actually enriches their identity rather than diluting it. It's a conversation that's ongoing, just like our journey as individuals navigating cultural intersections.
Yeah, indeed. And I appreciate that this dialogue doesn't offer simple answers. Rather, it highlights the complexity of living with multiple cultural influences. As much as we admire tradition, we must remain open to evolution.
Exactly. It's for sure an evolving story, one that every generation reshapes in its own way. And ultimately, it boils down to personal resilience, community connection, and a deep sense of belonging that goes beyond just ethnic lines.
Well said. It's genuinely inspiring how these personal narratives remind us that culture is not static, but something we continuously create. And that's where hope and progress lie.
Absolutely. To wrap it up, the exploration of Korean American experiences teaches us that embracing our multifaceted identities, acknowledging both the challenges and the strengths, allows us to be richer individuals overall.
Indeed. I think that sums it up perfectly. Thanks for the engaging discussion. It's given me a lot to reflect on about identity and culture.
Thank you as well. It's been a real pleasure unpacking these layers together. Till next time, keep embracing the journey of identity and belonging.